Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
I'm very excited. You seem to be in such a chipper mood today. What are we giggling about? What's
Well,
going on?
what I'm giggling about is that I realized that I do these hand motions. I feel like I'm in du jour from Josie and the Pussycats. So I'm like, and welcome to the Say Report. And today was the first day that I was like aware enough to notice that I do something with my hands when I do that. That was fun, I guess.
I look. First of all, like active speakers are, it's a way of engagement, right? Like, and in theater, like it's drilled into us, like the ways in which you behave like that. So like that doesn't surprise me. Also, on top of that, it's just like when you're podcasting, there's this weird element, right, where a lot of podcasts are produced like in studio nowadays, right? Like a lot of the more professional ones, like you hear that are they're in the same room, right? Generally, like at the level at which we are doing this, people are not, right? And so there's also this element to it where you are alone in a room, like you are having a conversation, but you are also by yourself. So the things that you were willing to do in those cases are uh, silly to be right. To be
Just
clean
trying to
about
figure out the code words I was using in our Bare Naked Ladies episode, and you'll understand just how silly it can be, guys.
Fucked up is also another way of thinking about
Yeah,
it.
no, it's silly. It's so silly. Silly is the perfect adjective for what we have to start this week's episode off with.
Yeah.
Is where I gotta go. But before that, I just need verbal consent from you that you're okay with the conversation we're about to have.
So this isn't how consent, Devin, works. You need to actually inform somebody. So
Oh,
that,
okay.
well, I guess that's not true. I guess that's informed consent.
Yeah,
Consent in general.
I
could
just need
be-
your consent, and then at the end of everything, I guess I'll get your informed consent, or people will just have like 17 minutes of silence at the beginning of this episode.
Oh my God. Okay, Devin, let's do this
Well,
thing.
I mean, I think I've given you some
No,
information.
no. What I like about this is something that I've always really worried about when we record is the ways in which that we all do this, just get into a conversation without warning the other. It becomes our conversation, right? You have now officially given me full permission to back the fuck away from this conversation.
Yes, but there's a reason behind that.
And that's why consent's important.
Yes. Okay, so full disclosure before this discussion starts. This is in relationship to Grim Guardian's Demon Purge, a game that I was able to platinum almost twice. I did it on my own game, single, and with Dale, literally all we have to do is complete the boss rush on legendary difficulty. But that boss rush, while it was pretty easy alone, doing it co-op makes it a real challenge.
Interesting. Well, before we go too much further, we should remind everybody that this is the GGDP game that we spoke about last episode. NSFW. How many other words
Yeah, no,
are out there? Like,
this is and that's the reason why we're talking about it, because around Thursday, so I hadn't touched the game for 2 days, and well, that's not true. Tuesday we had the first real snowfall of the entire winter season in Rhode Island. And if there was another one that I'm forgetting, please let me know. But
you
this
want some
was
of
the
mine?
one...
But seriously,
No.
it's been snowing fucking nonstop. Please
Yeah.
don't bury me.
Yeah. No, I don't want it. I'll be completely honest with you. Send it to California, which I think may have happened. They just had 12 feet of snow.
We sent a little too much to California. We need to actually maybe cool our jets, literally.
Cool our jet streams, guys.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
No, it's so that game. So I didn't touch it until Tuesday. So I took a break from it on Monday. Then Tuesday, 8 inches of snow, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to work. I mean, I worked from home, but I wasn't leaving the house. So with that in mind, not having the commute, I was able to start playing games right at 4 when I was done with work. And I'm like, I'm going to give this game just 4 hours of my time. And I did that, and I beat it, like, through everything, which, I guess, little correction, the panty quest actually starts on the 3rd playthrough, not the 4th playthrough. It's just that Dale and I, in our 3rd playthrough, literally didn't go to any of the places where the panty, like, wormholes appear. We didn't notice it until our 4th. Or it could be, because we are noticing this, Dale has been ever vigilant to keep her system on the original release version of the game.
Oh,
And I have been updating mine because by the time it came to download it, this is a weird thing about digital gaming. This is not the thing you consented to. This is a detour. But it's important to know a lot of digital gaming, you don't get version options, which is really crazy. Unless you downloaded it right beforehand and then you don't download any of the patches. But
right.
say you delete a game that you beat on like version 1 and then you're like, oh, a couple of years later I want to replay this. The only one that's going to be available to you via digital download is the most up-to-date version of that game.
Specifically on consoles, right? Like we're talking about, because there are definitely ways
there are
where
ways
if you
to
are
do
PC
it in
gaming,
Steam,
well, not
well,
even in Steam, but just on your PC. You have to go out of the system if you really want to do this kind of thing.
yeah.
And this is, I think, what you're getting at, is that as far as the system, the industry is concerned, you should be playing whatever the developer deems the current version of that game, right? Whether that's on console or on Steam or or any of the
I
Epic
guess I
stores
bring
and
up
stuff like
Steam
that.
because we talk about console, but Steam also tries to do that.
Right.
But there is a way to revert to earlier patches on
Yeah.
Steam, which is nice. You can't do that on like your Switch or your PlayStation or even your Xbox. They want you playing the one that is intended by the developer is the most up-to-date version, which opens up some interesting doors to discussion because a lot of the time that's not what the review copy is at all, especially if there's a day one patch.
Yeah.
So any reviews that you read are kind of instantly obsolete, which really is interesting when you think about the way that video game journalism is going. There was a pretty interesting article about that we can touch on a little bit later if you want to. But it's been interesting, especially with this game, because what I would notice above all else is they've just made the game easier with the patches.
I mean, we've talked about that before, right? And like the broadening the appeal to wider audiences and so, I mean, the term for it colloquially is nerfing, right? Let's not act like we don't also use that word, but that idea being that, like, that's what we're talking about, is you're talking about nerfing the game.
Well, it's more quality of life than nerfing. Nerfing, I think, makes something that was difficult easier. This is quality of life stuff where if
I mean, nerfing,
or is that the same thing? Like,
well, so nerfing is like it can be what you said, that idea that, oh, this boss is too hard, so we're going to make them easier to kill, or it can be this gun is too powerful, or it can be that like this armor is too powerful, or this moment in this game allows you to jump in a way that actually allows you to like jump over 5 parts of the level, so we're going to nerf that. Like, so anytime they take a dial and turn it down is nerfing.
Gotcha.
So I guess like that is where it gets kind of specific.
Okay. So I wouldn't say that anything has been nerfed, but I would say there's quality of life, and I'm noticing it specifically in the bosses.
I mean, then that just sounds like what they should be doing. I mean, personally,
I agree, right? But it's also crazy to me that, like, so was the game ready to release, or were you waiting to see how reactions were? Like, it's an interesting conversation because one of the quality of life things is these bosses have large health bars, and if you die in the middle of them, the boss's health bar fills up to a quarter more than you had gotten it down into the fight before.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if you get it down to half health and die, when you go fight the boss again, it has 75% of its health, which is an interesting mechanic considering,
usually your options are it's the same or it's all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
Or they're just back to full health. The idea that there is like an algorithm to determine like, no, you're still gonna get punished, quote unquote, for dying, right? Which is, what works in video, like that's the gaming loop, right? You are gonna receive some type of stick for kind of missing out on the whole carrot, right? But there is a kind of an element of forgiveness to that I think is that you don't often find in games nowadays. I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I mean, I noticed it in like the Curse of the Moon games, which is still my closest analog to Grim Guardians Demon Purge. But yeah, so that's something that I've noticed playing on like the version 1.04 as opposed to the version 1 with Dale.
I understand you don't want to say GGDP, and I totally respect that, but you don't have to say the full name every time.
I could just say Grim Guardians. That's true. No, I didn't know. I don't know why I did it there. I'm glad that we were able to laugh about it. Yeah. So So that's like stuff that I've noticed, and maybe like a little bit more forgiving. And there was a moment where Dale and I were like, we got kind of stuck somewhere, and that's been fixed. But the big one that we've noticed is the trophy that Dale and I are stuck on for one of them, like besides the boss rush, is the game is a loop game, right? So when you beat the boss the first time, you go back to the beginning. That trophy just doesn't pop in the first version of the game. And I don't know why that is.
I mean, probably because of a bug that they then patched
That they
out
then
with later
patched
things,
out
you
like
know? Like
quickly.
that's I mean that is why that's the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's
and
a
we played through it
mistake.
like a couple times, so we wanted to test it. So it's just an interesting thing is like that original version of the game, that gold version of the game,
Yeah.
was not working with one of the achievements, which is interesting because achievements, it looks like, come after the fact. If I want to talk about Bounty of One and the bounty of achievements that they dropped on everybody's head this week
Yeah.
with their latest update of early access, but all that, neither here nor there, just talking about it. So I played the game on Tuesday. I beat it through to the fact that all that I had left was collect all the underwears. And on friggin'
Fucking hell.
yeah, it's I'm sorry.
No, it's not you who made the damn game.
Well, and but this is why I asked for consent specifically, and that whole thing, because driving home on Wednesday, it suddenly sparked in my mind. I don't know like what was happening with that particular part of my brain, that in addition to the fact that this game makes you collect 40 pairs of underwear, all of those pairs of underwear belong to underage girls. They are in high school, and I did the math, and the fact that, like, first of all,
No. They're all 100-year-old goddesses that have just been trapped in high schooler bodies, right? No,
no,
not
they don't even have that
even
explanation. Like, it is, they are actually high school girls. To the fact that, like, the two main protagonists are a first year and a second year. First year, she could be 15 years old. Like, that's the youngest she could be as a first year student.
Yeah. I
So,
honestly like this is a man, you're touching on a really kind of big conversation that is kind of slowly been going on, you know, not surface level, although it has popped to the surface from time to time when major things have happened, like people getting arrested for having depictions of girls in mangas and things like that, and there being questions about like, well, what does the age mean, because you know they're not allowed to draw a body here or whatever weird rules and rumors you hear about that sort of stuff. And I'll be honest, like I just don't know, I don't know how to talk about this with anybody, right? Like this idea being that this kind of thing, right, is so prevalent, and this is a game that, as we established last week, we talked a lot about how it's playing in the world of satire, and whether or not it achieves that is kind of up to the individual. Slash, also, my argument last week, and I still stand by it, is that if they can't, if you don't feel like it's satire, like if you have to, the second you have to question, is this satire, then they have failed, right?
mm-hmm.
And so there's kind of this weird thing where I want to go with them on this journey, in that they are, you know, they are making fun of a genre, a world, a culture that embraces this kind of weird element, and that, so it's kind of, it goes hand in hand, right? But at some point that just becomes like forgiving them for doing a shitty thing, and I don't want to do that either, right? So like this is such a weird, hard concept to talk about in just this game's regard, but also on the macro level this is a really hard thing to talk about, because like there's just these really weird stories that are in these really formative pieces of art and work for people that, you know, manga, hentai, not hentai, but like it falls into hentai eventually, but anime, right? Like that idea being that, you know, you can find art in hentai. I'm not going to sit here and argue the merits of sexual art with people, but this idea being that people find value in this stuff, but so many of these things have this element, right? I wouldn't say a majority, but right now a large popular amount of it that gets talked about, there always seems to be this weird caveat of just being like, yeah, if you can just get past the fact that there's like this one 13-year-old girl that walks around in a bra the entire time, fine. It's like, what? No, I can't get past that part. Thank you. Like I want to get on board. I want to enjoy this thing, but like this there's always this weird sexual element thrown into this stuff nowadays. And I cannot believe how much we sounded like prudes last week after listening back in the episode, and how much I'm going to sound like one now, because I honestly don't feel like these things shouldn't exist. But like all things I always come to is like as long as everybody in the room is like aware of what's going on and like fully on board with what's going on, then fine, then the thing can exist. But the problem is how do you couch this kind of shit? Right? How do like how do you couch this idea of like, yeah, and then in the end you go around and collect 40 pairs of underage girls' panties, and it's like, what? Why is this part of this game?
But it's okay because you're playing as one of the underage girls. Oh, okay. I get. I don't.
Yeah, no.
So that just hit me. So at that point, it's like I kind of want to be done with the game, right? Like I've enjoyed myself with this game. I want to finish this experience and put it behind me. So Dale and I on Wednesday we played through it. We got the secret ending, the alternate ending of the game, which this is another like full disclosure. I was going to download Galgun Double Peace. I was going to play that game in pursuit of, is this satire or is this just like an excuse to kind of make a body game, right?
Right.
And I was going to do it, and I had talked to people. I was going to set up a dummy Steam account. I had found one of those things where you can find the game keys cheap. I had found it for $4, and I was all ready to do that until Dale and I unlocked the alternate ending of the game, which is a Galgun style fight. And that made me kind of want to throw up, is what I'm just going to say in the most honest of terms. Because it becomes a rail shooter, right? So like your House of the Dead, but because you don't have a light gun, you're just moving a cursor around on screen.
Right.
And what you have to do, sorry, I need to talk about it because this has been a very interesting conversation, and I swear that there will be good payoff. I'm sorry to anybody who's like,
I mean, let me put it this way: if anybody doesn't want to listen right now, like totally, like skip ahead 5 minutes, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we stop talking about it in some fashion. But anybody out there that's like, I'm not quite understanding this. There are YouTube like playthroughs of these games. Like you can go and find like pretty popular YouTubers that because when the games first came out, the Galgun games first started really kind of getting popularized. They were funny YouTube bits. I mean, I mentioned this kind of offhand the other day, but like I actually to this very week like stumbled across one. You have to wonder if the algorithm is listening to us record. But like, you know, big YouTubers like I mean, straight up like guys like PewDiePie and stuff like that, like would play games like this for content. It's because it's fun. It makes a good 10-minute video to run around and be like, what the fuck is this game where you're shooting panties off girls? And then like, you know, they're done with it and they move on. So there's not really like a focus on like what the hell is actually happening. It's more just like, let's play this fun game, especially because this was like 10 years ago YouTube where nobody got deep about anything. So there's this idea that like, I mean, so there's this ability for you now to go find this stuff out there. So sorry, I just wanted to make sure that
no, that's fine. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to look at it. I just wanted to go into it. So it becomes that, and the central focus of a Galgun style final fight is to target her quote unquote naughty bits with your pheromone shots.
Uh-huh.
So you gotta shoot at the breasts and the inner thigh, and it's only her left thigh, not her right thigh. Like, it's weird. It was a weird sort of experience. Where I'm like, so after that, I have no desire, even in pursuit of science, to play through a game where this is the content. And I know that's just me. It's just like I just don't want to give it my time.
Well,
because it's the most valuable resource is your time.
Yeah,
so I don't want to do that.
And like I was saying before, is like if you're gonna do this kind of shit, that's fine. You have to couch it. You have to contextualize it. You were probably in no way set up for this, right? It sounds like it kind of just rolls into this, and then suddenly you just found yourself in this, right? Yeah. Or was there some like page of text that came up to be like, hey, by the way, we're about to get into some shit? Like, that didn't happen, right?
So it becomes big, and then he's like, all right, so you girls are now overloaded with the power of love. You can use pheromone shots. You'll have to target her naughty bits to beat it.
Sorry, man. You know, I think this is exactly what Huey Lewis and the News were singing about, right?
Don't take money, don't take fame. Don't need no credit card.
No panties to drive me insane. Sorry.
Yeah, something like that. I was trying to do it. I'm like, I can't ruin Huey's music that way.
I can.
He's losing his hearing, Sejan. Imagine if that was the last thing he heard.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Now I feel real bad.
I only know that because I had tickets to see Huey Lewis in the news, and then they canceled the show because he's not going to be performing live anymore
I'm slowly
due to
losing my
his.
hearing. I have to take in every episode of the Say Report before it's gone.
Sorry, Huey.
We
That's the
love you.
news. We do love you. I was walking. Sorry. But yeah. So, and then it comes up with the tutorial of this is your cursor, aim at the naughty bits. And if you hold it, you can do a charge shot. But remember, looking at something for too long will draw her attention to it and she might cover up.
Mm.
And then the next page is if she covers up, here's how you can tickle her to have her drop her guard again.
Okay,
And
see, this is the moment where I probably would have personally bounced reading what I was going to have to do. And, good on them, I guess, to put this up. It's still not enough. Like, again, when I say contextualize it, I don't just mean like, hey, put like a
you don't
trigger
mean like a
warning on it.
tutorial? Yeah. It's not
Yeah,
even a trigger warning. It's just like I didn't understand. It wasn't so much what was going to happen, right? I'm like, all right, so it's like a shooter, okay. It was when it started and when it came down to like she's covering her breasts with like the obvious cross arm thing,
yeah.
and then you got to hold the circle button and move. Your cursor becomes a feather, and you need to move it around her body until she opens up her arms again in laughter, and then you need to shoot at her breasts. And I'm just like, this is weird and gross, and I don't want to do it, but I've put so much time into it. Like, this is the platinum that I'm the least proud of, is the fact that I have the platinum on this. And it's literally, like, for all of the gold trophies, if I
Yeah.
have to be completely honest with you. Because it's the gold trophies that are all related to this kind of, like, gross sexualization of underaged girls.
Just, yeah, and like, this is gonna sound like a really weird thing when I say it, but like, it doesn't like, it's not worth it, right? Like, there are games where making the player uncomfortable, like they do that, right? Horror games, but
Silent
like,
Hill is exactly where my mind went
yeah,
to.
yeah, like horror games, but I kind of don't want to couch it in that because in America we are so much more accepting of violence than we are of sexuality, right? So this idea of being like, well, these horror games do this too is just like of course they do because we literally want to put guns in the hands of children nowadays. So violence is really kind of not the same thing, but there's this thing is like if the art earns it, then it's a different story, right? And it just feels like the rest of this game was not worth this.
No, it really would. Go play the. I would go play the Curse of the Moon games 100 times before I play through this one again. And I mean, it's sad because in its core, the gameplay stuff of it is really good, but that it culminates and ends in that, very disappointing.
Yeah.
But the reason why I think all of this got started is after our episode last week, someone asked me about the game, and the question that they asked me, and this goes back to like way far back, Say Report lore, if you want to like go back to it, is what the game is rated. Now, as somebody who is older than 17 and thus can consume anything out there in the terms of gaming, I very rarely consider the rating on a game.
Yep.
But this is someone who is a parent, somebody who like enjoys the Castlevania type games. So they asked me, what is it rated? What's the game rated? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me check.
Well, let me put it this way: before you reveal any information you found, I would start to kind of I would start to think like, well, clearly it's going to be an older rated game, like TVMA or whatever the rating system is for that. But like, it is readily available places, right? Because the big thing about getting adult ratings, especially in video games, that's a death knell, right? Like you don't get your game out in front of people. Like Steam will allow those kinds of games to be sold and bought and all that sort of shit, but the hoops you have to kind of go through in order to find games that are in that way, like they bury them, right? Like that's part of what they do on Steam. And then let's not even get started on consoles. Like that stuff is generally just not available. Although you look at the Switch store sometimes and you wonder who the fuck is keep paying attention to anything going on there.
Well, Switch
that's
is
always,
just Steam 2.0.
yeah.
In a
Well,
lot of ways.
yeah. Well, it's like Steam, but like there's Steam with one person as opposed to a team of people. Like it's just, but yeah, so this idea being like, I would say I believe this game is probably rated extremely high, like right, like explicit, that
I
kind
would
of
think
stuff.
an M rating based on
But
everything that we've talked about. Like
yeah,
mature.
but
There are
but
mature themes on display in this game.
it would have to be mature, right? Because there's mature stuff on display, but at the same time, it's still available on consoles.
Right.
Mature is probably the
It's
most you're
not
going
an AO plus game,
right.
right? Which is, I think that's the rating. I know it's AO for adults only.
AO 18 plus, I think, or
Yeah, it's
something. Yeah.
some, yeah. So I look, because this person asked me, it's rated T for teen. And I'm like, you know what that says to me? How little goes into a game to determine its rating.
I wonder if multiple playthrough. I mean, the thing is, at this point, so many games have utilized the mechanic of New Game Plus and multiple to introduce new elements that you'd have to play through it more than once in order to truly understand what it should be rated, right?
Yeah.
You just have to wonder if anybody bothered to play through it more than once with that kind of, because that's the thing that's been really interesting to me about all these conversations that you've had. I mean, for anybody that's been paying attention, I've not touched this game and am not going to touch this game. But this idea being that, because apparently I'm a big old prude now in my old age, but this idea being that that like I have been very, very into this ways in which they've kind of slowly introduced these elements more and more as you play the game, like through again and again and again. It's like the game just gets dirtier and dirtier as you play, and that's an interesting concept. Like I'm actually kind of very into that in like a morbid curiosity kind of way. Like it almost feels like the new game plus prize is that it's going to just get like hornier, right? Like, and so this idea being that if you're rating the game, you would need to play through it. What did we determine? At least 3 times to really get to this kind of stuff.
3 times opens up the panty quest. Yeah.
Then, like, did somebody who rated this game ever play it that much? Why would they if they didn't know that stuff was there? But shouldn't that stuff be kind of told to the rating people? Not if you didn't want to get your game rated AO, I guess. But like, what? Like, where's the line on all this?
So like it's really opened up my eyes to that part of it, because the other thing is, even if you play through the game 2 credits, right, which would be 2 playthroughs of the game, you're not exposed to the panty element of it. And honestly, I don't think you're exposed to that until you do the ending where you don't break the mirror, you use a dimensional sliders type device to enter the world of the mirror. Because I think using that device is the in-game reason why the pocket wormholes show up everywhere.
Okay.
Like, I think like they put it into the lore of the game, which on the one level, cool, creative way to do it. But on the other thing, are you trying to hide this material from the ratings board?
Yeah, I mean, I would believe it was more malicious, which is kind of what you're hinting at in that second version of the story. But if I felt the ratings board had any real teeth other than the idea being that, yeah, my game is not going to sell in places. But if you're in this realm of this is the kind of game you're making, like you should, I don't know. You'd have to be stupidly malicious, like malicious to the point where you don't have a point to do that kind of thing, right? Because otherwise, like, I honestly, what it probably is you make this game thinking, yep, this is going to be our adult game that we're making because we make adult games. That's what we do. And then the ratings board comes back with a teen. And I think it's more you don't correct them. It's not a malicious thing. It's not a forward malicious thing so much as it is kind of like a malicious, like, bounce back response, right?
It's omission. And omission always feels less bad. Like a lie of omission, a sin of omission is the fact that, like, well, if they cared, they probably would have asked, right? So why is it on me to disclose this?
Right.
It's can you do me a favor right now?
Sure.
Do you have Steam open on your computer?
No, but I can in like 2 seconds. What's up?
Because I'd be curious what the rating for something like any of the Galgun games are.
Yeah, let me
Because I want to see if they're also teen. Because those games, as I've come to find out in doing the research for their ages, like Double Peace, it talks about the areas where quote unquote their weak spots are to pheromone shots, and that really kind of grossed me out. Because one of them was like, behind her left knee is going to be the place where you can do quote unquote the most damage. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's like that should probably in an M-rated game, right?
Yes. Where is the rating on Steam
That's a
nowadays?
really good question. Info probably like halfway down the page.
Yeah. I've got. Oh, it's rated M. They're rated
Okay, they
mature.
are rated M. So that's interesting too because they have not been quiet about the fact that this is a spin-off of it. So
Hmm.
like the rating board, wouldn't you think that a question would be, well, we want to give this one a team, but it's a spin-off of these M-rated games. Is there something we're missing?
Well, so then we get into the conversation, and I'm much more familiar with this in film than I am in video games, like the way that this part of the
I've
system works.
never considered film game rating before, ever. This is the
So,
first time it's been opened up to
right.
me.
So in film, there's a very big, very. I mean, there's an entire movie about this. That the ratings board is not made up of people that like are super in love with movies, like right, like it's actually kind of weird how often like they just kind of misinterpret and misunderstand shit in the art of filmmaking. And I imagine it's much the same way in video games. Is like you probably have for the video games rating like board, you probably have people that like they don't know what Galgun is. They have no idea. They don't get the joke. They're not in on the bit, right? And so going back to my issue, like it feels like not everybody in the room was on the same page when they were looking at this game, and because of that, people are kind of missing this huge part of this game that probably shouldn't be in a teen rated game, probably.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Is once this exists in the game, this should be an M for mature game. And if you don't want, and if you're like that could jeopardize our teen rating, then you take that out, right?
yeah,
Or you make it, or what you do is like because the Galgun games are known, right? Like you said, people have used them for YouTube content. That you super fucking infantilize it, and you're like shooting puppies at her or something like that. Like I like lean into the skid of the joke.
yeah.
Like
Or I mean, we live in the day and age of like DLC and add-ons, right? Like imagine that news. We're making a mature rated add-on for our teen rated game. Like would be actually probably something that would probably be like really interesting to read about and hype some stuff up a little bit and also section off material that allows your game to exist. I don't know how that works. Like maybe you can't make once you have a teen rated game, maybe you can't make DLC that could
well,
change that rating.
so often the DLC has that little asterisk that says this is not rated by the people who rate games.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is technically unrated
Yeah,
content.
the ESRB, right?
The
Isn't that what it is?
ESRB, yes, thank you. All I could think of was the MPAA.
No.
Or I think just the MPA now. I think they dropped one of the A's. But yeah, like, I'm like the ESRB. This was not subject to ESRB rating.
Right.
So they could do that. You could do that with any game, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I think about definitely more malicious stuff like Crash Team Racing, and the one that went for rating and for review did not have any sort of in-game purchases, and then the second patch added them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, like, because the patch is not open to ESRB scrutiny, because it is not open to the same, judicial scrutiny for in game purchases, they were able to add it at the end of the day. And
yeah,
if you're a parent who goes out to the store to buy a physical copy of that game for their child, you flip it over, and you're like an intelligent parent who is aware of the things that exist in like FIFA and Overwatch and other games that have been in the news related to in-game purchases. Like you're gonna flip that game over, and there's nothing on the box that says this game
in-game
features
purchases.
in-game purchasing,
Yeah, yeah,
because the copy that you're buying right there doesn't. But as soon as your kid pops it into the system, if they want to race online with their other friends, they'll have to download that content, and
yeah.
then they will be privy to that in-game purchasing sort of mind fuckery.
Yeah,
That
and
is
this
on
kind of gets
display.
to what I was saying about the ESRB not really having much teeth in this regard, right?
Yeah.
Because if that happens, it's not like they're going to turn around and tell you like your game is pulled from shelves. They don't have that. They don't have that ability. The worst thing that they can do is they can overrate your game to this like as far as like punishments go is they can overrate your game to a level at which it won't be sold in stores. But like that like there's no scenario in which that would make sense for them to be doing because like it's wild. Like how much of this system, much like the movie rating system, like is so dependent on good faith, right? And that was always the point, is that we don't want the government involved making these decisions. We're going to do this ourselves, and as long as we do this, consistently and in some fashion that is pleasing to the right people, then the government will keep their nose out of our shit, and that's important. Like I am all for that. Like the idea of it being a self-governing body of the industry taking care of itself, totally think there's more merit in that than not, right? Which is why this system needs to exist. But this is an example of like somebody pushing their luck in this regard, and you're gonna ruin it for the rest of us if you fuck this up.
Yeah. But honestly, I feel like we're probably the only people talking about this. I feel that way in this really.
I mean,
gross
that
way.
that doesn't make me feel, yeah, that doesn't make me feel good,
No,
right?
me either. Like that's like that, at the end of it, that's where it's like, oh, now like my skin is kind of crawling because we're just two voices, right? And we're not in some sort of echo chamber where this is going to be resonated off the walls and everybody's eventually going to hear about it.
Yeah.
So it's sad in that respect in some way. But also the big thing, and I'm really glad that Dale has been, she's been so vigilant making sure that she doesn't download any of the patches. And it's cool that you can do that on the PS5. I don't know if you can do it on PS4.
Not without disconnecting.
Yeah.
Like you can download a game and then basically shut off your internet access on that PS4 and just play whatever version you have. But even that is getting harder and harder to do because, as we also talked about last week, if it ever pings for a license and it's like, hey, you're not online, you can't play this game until we go online and verify that you actually own it, which is weird. But it's like, okay. And then you turn the online on, and the first thing it does is like it will not let you play this game unless you download the patch. But I have heard, of like, people when this is really big with like not Elder Scrolls, Elden Ring. This is really big with like Elden Ring and Dark Soul games and stuff like that. Is guys that want to make sure they keep vanilla versions of the game, like they download it, pre-download it, and then turn off the internet, and then they play the version as soon as they can. And like I said, eventually they've started to run into like walls where it's like, oh, the game won't start unless I turn the internet back on, and so I'm fucked. I'm going to lose this version of the game. People have tried to work around that. This is something that a lot of people have tried to do. Hackers in their basement everywhere, always trying to get into this shit. But like generally, like you're correct. There's not really a way to do that on the PS4. It's interesting that the PS5 actually has this kind of built-in element. I have to imagine it's because it's such a big popular thing in the community, in like the fan communities, modding communities, things like that, to keep vanilla versions of the game.
Yeah. And it is because it'll say start without updating, so you can do that, but then you also need to make sure that you pause it, because if it's fully downloaded, then it will install the next possible chance it has.
Yep.
So it's something that I learned it with Elden Ring because I wanted to beat it, and I never have on that first version. But while we're still in this time where there is physical and digital available, if you're somebody who cares about playing a certain release of a game, always go physical, because
Right.
more often than not, you're going to have the 1.0 version on that disc.
You'll at least have the earliest version possible, sans whatever patches came out after release, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, you'll always have that, even though if you install, it's like, oh, it's going to patch. You can find ways to not do that, like for instance, turning the internet off on your system.
Exactly. So that's the thing, and it's part of that. But I had to. Once I was asked about the rating, I like went through it, and it is very interesting to me that
That's
that
wild.
is all there in the version 1.0 of the game.
Yeah.
Like, it was something that the version that was probably sent to the Electronic Software Ratings Board, the version that people looked at and reviewed, it was all there. And so many reviews. The only review I saw that even mentioned Galgun was released the same day that we released last week's episode. All of the other reviews were like, it's a fun little thing, sure. And they don't even mention that it's a spin-off of the Galgun saga.
Weird.
So, like, eventually, if you keep playing the game, you're going to hit that moment. And again, I don't want to sound like a prude. It's just, there's a game that I was recommended on Steam. I have not played it, but someone recommended it to me. It's Scarlet Maiden. I don't know if you're familiar with Scarlet Maiden.
I'm not.
If you got
No.
Steam up, you know what? This is going to be fun in real time for everybody but Siegen. Type in Scarlet Maiden and just like watch
Oh, I
silently.
know. I actually do know this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a amazingly built, beautiful platformer, like Shantae style, with like a lot of like powers and stuff that you get. But everybody is a basically almost naked woman.
And also, but also watch like just a little bit of it.
Man, the pixels are. Oh man.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. But then there's also like the Scarlet Maiden in the trailer is like blowing things or
Oh yeah,
having
yeah.
stuff
Having
shoved in
sex
her
with a
ass, and like
vampire,
yeah.
having sex with a nun,
So
having
so
sex with a yep, yep. I see it all right here.
so
Thank you for, by the way, for making me search all of these games.
I'm sure it won't mess with your Steam algorithm 2 days later. But yeah, so someone recommended that to me for all of the reasons that you said. Like it's gorgeously done. It's a beautifully built game. And then I saw that and I'm like, you know what? I'd be lying if I said I'm not interested in this. But being from the beginning able to consider the lascivious content seems fair to me, right? Like it's one of the reasons why I didn't download the Galgun games is when I watched the trailer and I'm like, oh, I'm shooting pheromones at young girls. I
Yeah.
don't think they're for me, right? So this one sort of hiding it has been real interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, to the Scarlet Maiden, to their credit, who is the developer on this? I want to make sure that we do give full credit for this because I do mean this when I say this. Looks like Otter Side Games, and Critical Bliss is the publisher on it. Probably have a lot of games that are kind of adult only in this regard. Very obvious immediately that this is an adult game, right? Like like on the Steam page there are specific Steam made sprites for like the about this game section that are just like clearly like, oh, okay. Like so there is no hiding it on this page.
Yeah. And knowing that, like maybe, but again, it'd probably be with a dummy Steam account so that none of my friends know that I played this game.
Eh.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. You're not going to see it in any GDQs, right? It'd probably get you thrown off Twitch. If BM Triple X gets you thrown off Twitch, I have to imagine Scarlet Maiden would get you thrown off Twitch.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, so it's all there and that's it. But then, as like the coda to this whole piece and story, I finally got my limited run game River City Girls Collector's Edition in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I opened it up, and one of the things that is like a bonus swag lucre for this is facsimiles of their school ID cards. The school ID cards for the River City Girls. And
Oh.
included on those are their ages.
Oh.
Based purely on everything that you have heard from me about River City Girls, Sejin, how old do you think the River City Girls are?
I mean, I would hope that they're at least 18 and 19 or, you know, both 18.
They are both 18.
Okay.
And that, on one level, made me feel pretty good. But then on another level, are they girls then or are they women? The way that the developers have talked about those characters, like they're just these stupid girls and all this other stuff, it kind of hits different knowing that they're 18-year-old characters.
Well, yeah, I mean, it hits even worse, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not like there's no merit to the bullshit that the developers of those games have. The ways in which they've expressed their disdain for their own characters, and on top of that, like kind of it sounds like women in general. Like I'm not surprised to see that they think of 18-year-old women as just dumb ditzy girls, and it's just like it's just bullshit. There's no talking around it or about it. Like it just sucks that, especially because of the idea that you know they have to be 18. Clearly they're 18 because of the content of those games, right? And there's this idea being that like, are they just calling them 18 so that they can do terrible shit with them, but then thinking about them as younger, like that starts to feel really gross too. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in the River City Girl stuff that feels, I mean, honestly, it feels even more. It feels even grosser than the GGDP stuff, right? Like I was trying to remember what
the acronym was.
what's the what's the DP stand for in the shooter one? In
Double
the
piece.
double piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's weird. Like there it feels much more it feels mean. It feels like it's disrespectful in a way that the other stuff is not is at least not disrespectful, but at the same time it's still all gross. So like I don't know. It's like looking in a fucking pile of crap and trying to parse out what's the least smelly shit. It's like no,
Yeah.
it's all still shit at the end.
Yeah, like opening that collector's box, I'm like, yeah, this game was good. Like I have this, like the first River City Girls, like I really understand why I connected with it, why I enjoyed it, and why the follow up kind of fell so short for me
Yeah.
because they didn't build on it. They just kind of like they went down with it. They didn't elevate. They just went down in so many ways. But then to see their ages, and especially on the heels of all the research I was doing with Grim Guardians, I'm just like, so wait, so they're 18, and then the way that they treat them, like the fact that they're 18, okay, it's okay kind of that they beat up cops, right? Or the things that happen to them, because at least they're adults. But also, since they're adults, like fuck the way that you refer to these characters.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
um,
Yeah, and again, like there is also this weird kind of element to it of we're gonna put them right on the line, right? 18 is gonna be just like they're not 20 somethings, they're 18, and there is this way in which as a society, we kind of still infantilize what, I mean, as you've rightly pointed out, people that we consider to be adults, right? Like anybody over the age of 18 is considered an adult in this country. There are things that get really weird about that. Like, you know, they still can't rent a car for 7 years, but like it is what it is. Like 18, you are now officially responsible for yourself, right? And so in that regard, like it's still there you know like, weirdly what I'm thinking of is the Leonardo DiCaprio conversation, right, where like a lot of people have really started to talk about and you know express some concerns about the idea that he is on this weird cycle of like date somebody until they turn what is it like 25 and then break up with them and then go out and find like another 18-year-old to start the cycle over again. And he's now old enough that this has happened a few times and people are just like this is weird, like
we've
he's like
noticed the pattern, Leo.
yeah, right, and like this is a weird, you know, in the era, in the post Me Too era, right, like, or at least the not that we're past any of that shit, but like in the post blow up of that, right, like people have started to really kind of scratch their heads a little bit about that, but a lot of people in those conversations then also rightly point out, yes, but we consider 18 to be an adult. And at that point, we don't really get to say like you can't do this. We can still like tisk and like and look away. If you don't want to support the guy, then don't go see his movies. Like you vote with your dollar, right? Like you're able to do that. But there's not much more you can do beyond that because again, 18, they are adults in this situation. They are allowed to make these decisions for themselves. That is what we have decided is the case. But it seems like as much as we have said that like on paper everywhere, we can't seem to wrap our heads around the idea of allowing people of that age to actually be adults in their own right. We always want to kind of still infantilize them because they are still so young. They're still on that edge. Part of that is also because developmentally, we know that people don't really finish like cooking until they're like 25, right? Like, and so there is also this weird element of we have deemed 18 to be this age kind of arbitrarily. And like beyond that, we now are realizing that people are still figuring their shit out for another almost decade after that, right? You know, so is that something that we need to revisit? No, I don't think so. In fact, I think that like Europe has it even better, is like younger ages at which people are given more responsibilities younger actually help them become more responsible adults when they're older, right? It's just that you've got to dole it out slowly, right? Like you don't just say one day like boom, you're out on your own, kid, you're an adult, which is kind of the real problem that we have in this country, is that there's no systems in place to take care of anybody as they go through that process, right?
Well, I mean that being said, you can still be on your parents' health insurance until you're 26.
Yes, but that's only something that happened in the last 10 years.
True.
Right?
No,
like,
I agree.
That's not something that existed before.
But for you to say that there's nothing, that is something that does exist.
One thing.
It's one thing. It's not the greatest thing.
Mom and dad. But that's the other thing, is that also depends on the consent of your parents being
yes.
part of it. So if they decide to just kick you the fuck out, you're now just as this country considers you, just an adult on your own. right? Like there are the systems in place to take care of people under the age of 18. While they are also not great in this country, there's at least more you can point to because, like, I mean, think about any movie ever where it's about like a foster kid who's about to turn 18 and then they've got nowhere to go, right? Like it's like part of our like literature, like shorthand nowadays is like you say somebody's going to turn 18 and the first thought is, oh, the system's going to just shit them out on the street and they'll have nothing. Like that's literally like conceptual shorthand for our American short stories. Like it's crazy that that's just part of the system that we just that's how we expect it to work.
Oh yeah, no, America's fucking broken.
But yeah, so it's this constant back and forth between the fact that we want to draw this line and say 18 is when you become this adult where you're allowed to be a human and do these things. But on the other hand, every time we see an 18-year-old, there's this moment of just treating them like a teenager, like a kid, right? And when games like this come along, like River City Girls, or I mean, even what's going on in the Galgun games, where they're younger, but you know that in like any type of literature, if they wanted to make it more popular, all they would do is keep everything exactly the same, not change anything about the look or the style, and then just say they're 18, and suddenly that makes it all quote unquote okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what they do with River City Girls. And then one other point of contention is Misako is in B class and Kyoko is in C class. So then also the way that they're written to like not understand math, like you would expect them both to be E class based on how Japanese like classes work.
yeah.
Like it's like so Misako is almost an A class student, but then she's like, I don't understand how words work. And she'll just say that out loud.
Yeah, I mean that just reads like misogyny to me. It's
Yeah.
like that they're yeah, she's
Yes.
smart for a girl. It's like, okay, this is fucking weird.
Yeah. I just needed to. It was only because I was looking at schooling in Japan to try to figure out how old they are in.
Oh, just watch a
GGBP.
couple of seasons of Assassination Classroom and you get it pretty down.
I love Assassination Classroom. How dare you bring up probably one of my favorite animes ever? I got just like top 5 definitely.
It's one of the few animes that I also own a couple of the mangas for. I'm not a big like manga guy. Like I don't go looking for new releases or anything like that. But if I see an anime that really grabs me, Full Metal is like this too. Full Metal Alchemist is like this too. Like I was like I want to own the mangas for these. Like it's a rare feeling for me. But that was one of them.
I just want to clap my hands at you, Siege, and see if it stuns you. Oh, we're having fun. But I think that's it on that. I guess the last thing, just because you brought up the Leonardo DiCaprio of it, I really liked all those articles being written about how Leo's latest squeeze had her high school like experience disrupted by COVID. Like that was really a headline that was meant to cut him to the bone.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I like, the last time that I really think about people really focusing on this kind of thing was probably somebody like Hugh Hefner, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing about Hugh Hefner was that he already kind of had that baggage. The word that I'm going to use is skeezy, which has some really negative connotations to it. And some people do have some really negative connotations to this kind of shit happening in the world. So like, it is what it is. But like, that's the last time that people were really kind of skeezed out by somebody behaving this way, so this much. I've not seen this kind of reaction because there are plenty of people out there that find themselves in relationships with people, 20 years younger than them. But generally, those people are usually in like their 50s, and they find somebody in their 30s, and that feels okay to people because again, the younger person in that relationship is fully developed at this point, right? There's this idea that like when your brain is still trying to figure its shit out, maybe you shouldn't be doing things like dating somebody 30 years older than you. Like, and I can't say I disagree with that, but also at the same time, like it's not my place or right to do or say anything about that. So it's this weird kind of line that you have to walk. It is my place to say I'm not going to spend money on or time on a game that like highlights these weird elements. Like I can do that. And I can say I'm not going to go to a Leonardo DiCaprio movie because I don't like the ways in which he exists in the world. Totally can do that. But at the same time, I don't like everybody talks about like everybody wants to make sure that that you know they're doing that. Like, you know, that's an internet problem. Is like we can't stop talking about how we're doing these things because we want everybody to know we're doing these things. And I don't need that either. You know, I do have a podcast where I get to brag about my shit all the time, but like beyond that, I don't participate in these conversations.
Yeah, and I understand it, but this is where this comes down for me. I'm
Hmm.
done with it. I'm deleting it. I am well immersed in Kirby's Return to Dreamland, having an
Yay!
absolute blast with that. I got the gold medal in the sand challenge today,
Oh
which
man,
was not easy at all.
no,
That was
no.
very difficult. It's the last thing I did before coming down to record. So I'm excited about that. But what I'm more excited about is this morning at 2 a.m., my phone went off with a little alert that Target had more Metroid Prime in stock. So I'm going to be playing Metroid Prime Remastered. I'm excited for
Yay.
that because I want a physical copy of it, but also I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be some piece of gold, the one copy that I got, when it seemed like they just didn't exist in America.
No, yeah, no, they're on second printings, I think, for it now, and also there's a lot of stores that are spreading their stock out. That's the other thing that we you know, like we don't have to get into too much business like acumen here, but like the ways in which certain stores are sent higher stock levels because of, you know, what they think is going to sell and what doesn't. They do eventually get to a point where they're like, okay, we're gonna shift some of this stock around, and you're benefiting from that a lot too, probably. Because the other thing is that you mentioned the Metroid Prime stuff, and I walked into a Target the other day, not looking for Metroid Prime, but I, you know, figured why not look for it while I was here, and sure enough, two copies of it sitting on the shelf there. In addition to that, a bunch of copies of Pokemon Shield and no Sword. I don't know why, but Sword was just absent. Which I was only looking because I own Shield, and so I'm getting curious about like possibly purchasing Sword because, you know, we have multiple Switches in the house and people that want to play Pokemon now, and I'm like, well, if you guys are going to play it, you might as well play the other game so that we can really get the full effect here. But like not being able to physically find a copy of Sword out in the wild is kind of interesting. Like I don't know.
I'm glad that you didn't say wild twice. I would have taken off 10 points from this essay, Sajin.
Thanks.
I'm glad you brought up Target, because I kind of feel like they cocked things up lately. Are you familiar at all with Haul-a-thon? Do you know what Haul-a-thon is?
So Haul-a-thon, I think you sent me a little bit of information about this. I'm going to be clear. I think the only
Yeah,
reason I know about it is because you sent me this.
that's fair.
But it's the action figure stuff, right? Like the toy line stuff that they're putting out like made like exclusive versions of stuff, right?
Yeah. So it's for adult collectors. They use that terminology about 1,000 times on the website.
Nice.
They started it last year. Last year was the first Haul-a-thon. So this is the second one. They're calling it Haul-a-thon 2.0 because if you can't start with a lowercase I, definitely finish with a number .0. And so Haul-a-thon 2.0 is happening right now. And the issue that I'm seeing with Haul-a-thon 2.0, I'm not really participating. I'm going to start with that. It's all the NECA, so was it Northeastern collect cartoon anime, like it's entertainment. It's this weird thing, like what NECA stands for. I got a package directly from them, and they call themselves the full thing on the packaging, not just the acronym of NECA, NECA. I wish I could remember it. Entertainment is what the E stands for. They have partnered up with Target to do exclusively at Target toys based on the 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series.
Hmm.
So if you want like a Leonardo that's going to look just like Leonardo from that series, you have to go to Target. You also have to go back in time about 10 years because they haven't done the Turtles in a very long time. Right now, mostly what they're doing is like secondary characters.
A lot of really cool, wild secondary
Yeah.
characters. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Mona Lisa, the only reason why I'm even invested at all in Haul-a-thon 2.0 is because there's a Mona Lisa figure. And Mona Lisa is a very interesting character from me because she's the only, like, would pass the Bechdel test female mutant in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon series. Anytime you saw a female mutant, she was usually a background character and did not speak. Mona Lisa is given a name. She is given a backstory. She has a discussion not about a man. It's with Raphael, but she's sitting there talking about, I was abducted and then I tried to free myself by breaking the ship's ballast, and the radioactive runoff is why I'm this salamander girl now.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
ideally she would get to talk to somebody like April O'Neil and not like
Exactly.
focus on boys and stuff. But
Yeah. I mean, and then she becomes a love interest for Raphael. The name of the episode is Raphael Meets His Match. That is the only episode that she's in.
so not amazingly handled, but better than other female.
Better than the
characters.
fact that, like,
Yeah.
the other one that I think of, there's like a female giraffe character in Dirk Savage Mutant Hunter, which Mona Lisa is packed with Dirk Savage.
Yeah.
So that's the 2-pack. And that's really interesting because you'd think, well, if you're going to do like an obscure character with Mona Lisa, why not the big bad of that one episode who kind of looks like Dirk Savage? Like, I almost wonder if they think that Dirk Savage is the bad guy from that episode. Like, that's just a personal thought there. But yeah, but like, I'd like a Mona Lisa figure because in my display, I have the original Mona Lisa action figure, and I'd like to have the updated one. I think that like that'd be interesting to have them together in my display.
Cool.
So
sure.
I'm interested in getting that. So Haul-a-thon started on February 26th, but because, shipping and how everything works with shipping, Target stores received the stock the Friday before the 26th. So what is that, the 24th of February? I think that makes
something along those lines. Yeah.
So all of the stuff that they received, they put out on the shelves. And turtle collectors, which, I mean, as a fan of Ninja Turtles, there's some crossover on my social medias, were going out hunting for this stuff and then complaining about having to drop $700 if they bought all of the turtle collectibles that were available the first weekend of Haul-a-thon, knowing that there would be other weeks of Haul-a-thon to come. But that's what comes up, what I sent you. I don't know if you can bring it up. I know that you were having issues with our Discord server a little bit earlier today. Haul-a-thon week 1 happened, and the official start of that, and the when they're going to be available online, but also when they were supposed to really put them out on the shelves, right? Like, not really a street date. You can put it out beginning on the 26th, but if you can wait until the 3rd of March, please do. It was only like 4 turtle things that they put out. It was an accessory pack for the cartoon, 2 2-packs from the cartoon, and then 2 comic figures from the cartoon.
And this is what equaled $700. I'm looking at the picture now. So is this what equaled the $700? No, so
that did not equal $700. The 2 2-packs, which is Rocksteady and Bebop as superheroes.
Yeah.
And then what? God, I can't remember what the other one was.
It looks like a moth with a harpoon in his hand.
Well, that's Ray Fillet.
Okay.
So he's a cartoon. He's a comic character.
And then I've got a samurai, and I've got
Lotus, and I cannot remember that other guy's name. So and then the Shredder clones, right?
Yes.
4 Arms, who is called Shiva Shredder, and then Mini Shredder.
Mini Shredder, yeah.
Which is awesome, right? So no, Mini Shredder, that set is $40.
I mean, are we gonna just gloss over this
the accessory pack?
No, this cute as hell chibi.
Oh, the Hello Kitty,
Hello
beef
Kitty
bowl?
and a cup of noodles. Yeah.
Well, it's not Ninja Turtles, so that wasn't going to be part of the $600.
I look.
But that chibi,
you put me.
Yeah, Beef Ramen Hello Kitty is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's super cute. All power to the reactors for Beef Ramen Hello Kitty. She's got a little cow outfit. It's super cute. But yeah, so what was supposed to release was the accessory pack, which is $60. The 2 cartoon 2-packs, so the superheroes and the samurais. Those are another $60. So that's $180. And then Ray Fillet and the Shredder clones, both of those were $40. So $180 plus $80, $260. Was available this weekend, right?
Yep.
But those were all things that were available and people were picking up while they were collecting and complaining about the $600, right? So that's $600, sometimes $700 that people shelled out for Haul-a-thon stuff. To me, it feels like their releases were supposed to be staggered week to week.
Yeah.
and that Target just was like, fuck it, we're putting it all out. Because you've
Yeah.
worked in retail, fuck it, we're putting it all out.
Well, it's not even a fuck it, we're putting it all up thing. You're unboxing shit as it comes in. You open up the crate of stuff and you're told this goes in the toy aisle, and so you put it out. Like like the only time where
Well,
the only level at which I was ever concerned about street date, right, where I was thinking this should not be out just yet, was when I was finally in a more managerial position and I was responsible for the charts that they send you about like where stuff go on the shelves. Like it was part of my job to go around and rearrange the shelves and the pricing tickets and all that to make sure that stuff was in the right place. And if I saw something that we had in the crate that wasn't on that chart, then I wasn't going to put it out because that was literally my job. Any step lower beneath that, I didn't. That was, if it was in the box, I was told it had to go on the shelf. There was no discussion about like when things went or where things went and all that. And I think specifically like my way back in the day, my CVS days when I was first learning, right? And we were putting DVDs and stuff out, and they were getting like electronics and things like that. And sure enough, like Christmas stuff would come in for our store. It would come in on a Wednesday. We just put it up Wednesday night. For the store down the street, they didn't get their delivery till Thursday or Friday. They didn't put theirs out till Thursday or Friday. So we were the store that some people would come to for specific stuff because we were putting stuff out earlier, right? And like again, there was no discussion about like should this stuff be out yet or not until years later when I was in a much higher position and I was just like, oh, this stuff isn't supposed to be up here yet. And like that is where you start to talk about like the fuck it, we'll just put it out. Is like you end up in Targets, which are much bigger than CVS's. So big, in fact, CVS's are now within Targets, right? Like, but this idea that like you end up in a store that large, you have to imagine that whoever is like the site manager that is responsible for making sure that stuff gets followed is probably responsible for like 5-6 sections of that store. Like
and
they're probably not just toys. They're probably also responsible for electronics. They're probably also responsible for books, right? Like, and so, yeah,
yeah, and the NECA stuff is not going to the toy section. There's a special collector's spot
right,
in
right.
electronics. So, like, if you're an electronics person, you know that, like, well, we can't put out the new iPhone until Friday. But you don't care about that collector spot. And let me tell you a little thing about the collector spot. It's always empty.
Yeah,
Because the type of people who are collecting that stuff are going there when they know stuff is there and buying it out of stock. And in the wake of the whole shipping crisis at the end of the last 2 years, empty shelves scare people.
yeah,
So if you can have your shelves full of stuff, they're going to just have their shelves full of stuff.
yes,
But like from the marketing standpoint of it, you have to imagine Target was thinking, oh, we'll put out these 5 things on this Friday, 5 more the next Friday. That person's coming in both Fridays and probably picking up more than just those collectibles.
I mean, considering what this ad is that's in front of me, I think you're spot on. Is like this was what was supposed to be available this week, but guess what? It's not just this stuff. It's another $400 worth of stuff on top of this.
Right. And it was available a week before the ad I sent
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
So it's been an interesting thing because a lot of people are learning whether or not their store has a NECA like person who puts out the product. I don't know if you ever dealt with one of those when you were working in any of your jobs.
I mean,
where like
so the only time that I ever dealt with somebody like that, honestly, yeah, honestly was booze. Alcohol always has that, but Lay's like potato chips, like the potato chip guys, you did not touch the potato chip section. They would come in, they would handle everything. They would even check dates and pull stuff that was old, right? The Lay's potato chip guy was, to be fair, completely on his shit. He was always there when he was supposed to be. He was always like spot on like a machine, but he handled everything in that regard. Right next to it, where it was just like, I'm gonna be putting out like, the candy, like I was all on me. I was responsible as this like 17-year-old working third shift at CVS to go through and check dates on everything, front everything, like make sure that like spaces were filled, all of that stuff that you're talking about. But there was a 6-foot section of the CVS that I worked at that was the potato chip section, and I was told, do not touch it.
yeah. So a lot of people are learning what stores have NECA reps because those people went to their stores this Friday and saw just those things on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then other people will be like, well, this is mine. And, I mean, even I went to one. I had to return a product, and then I'm like, well, I'm here. I'm curious because, I'm looking for that Mona Lisa figure. And on the shelf was stuff that like, oh, none of this is part of Haul-a-thon this weekend.
Yep.
So I mean, I ended up buying. They're doing a Last Ronin. They're calling it Rogue Derelict, which feels like a missed opportunity, because it's all in red. Like it's because he's like bathed in red warning lights. Like there's a
Yeah.
beautiful sequence in it where he's running through
I
as this
mean, by the
outsider.
way, leading to the mass confusion of everybody thinking it's a Raph figure.
Yeah,
That is something that I have noticed about that particular figure that people have really just been like, oh man, I can't wait to get that last known Raph, and and other people being like, guys, I don't want to like ruin that story for you, but that's not Raph.
yeah. And well, also leading to the confusion is that supposedly coming this year are a Raphael, Leonardo, and Donatello, spoilers, I guess, from The Last Ronin, because they feature in a
Yeah,
moment in the story,
yeah,
and they have these unique designs. And at New York City Comic Con, they showed off those figures. So there
yeah,
are people who are like, I can't wait to get that Last Ronin Raphael, who are talking about an actual Last Ronin Raphael
yeah,
figure.
yeah, yeah.
But then you see the
On
all
the shelf
red,
at my Target, by the way.
the
The
Rouge run. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I picked one up. And I'm a little disappointed because I was going to sort of make it my Raph, knowing full well that it's not Raphael. But he's all red and it's cool, so I was going to give him the two sais as weapons. He only comes with one sai. So I'm a little disappointed about that, but I think I can make it work. But it's a beautiful figure in terms
yeah.
of that. And I saw it on the shelf, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick that up because I see it in shelf, and I don't know if it's going to be available when it was there. I mean, specifically online when everything went live at 8 o'clock Central Time, the accessory pack sold out in 7 minutes.
Wow.
And that's because I was there watching it and refreshing until I saw that it went sold out. Because I was curious, because like that's the one that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
And now currently, I think if you go on eBay, I saw one going for $150.
Of course.
So like,
Man, collector mentality.
it's
Oh
so
boy.
nuts. Like, and they now know, the companies now know. That's why they do things like these haul-a-thons, right? Because
Yeah.
they're trying to capture that collector mentality.
Well, and Target is like really bought in on this because the other section of the store where you really see a lot of this is the Lego section. I don't know about out by you, but out here, every Target now features a high class Lego section that is separate from all the other Legos, like the black box, like architect, and like the busts of like Iron Man's helmet or like Batman's cowl, or the really nice reworks of cars, or like like I said, the architect line, like the Eiffel Tower or Falling Water, like that those builds in like those really nice slick like black and white boxes. Those are all in a separate section, and those are the $180 Lego sets. Like they're like these really nice ones, but it's more of Target feeding into that collector mentality. Like they're really in buying into that attitude. The record sections too, if you look at
Oh,
those.
because they actually have records
Yeah,
to start with.
they've got like reprints that are Target exclusives of like classic records, and I actually have bought a couple because they've been really cool. Like I've got a Natalie Cole does her father's music, and it's this whole gorgeous set, and the Target exclusive printing of it. The vinyls are pink, like this really gorgeous like mellow pink that just looks so good on my golden record player, right? So I've bought into some of this stuff, but Target is like whole hog like buying into this collector mentality stuff.
Where Walmart, in trying to do it, they essentially sold NFTs.
Yes.
That's like, I don't know if you were familiar with that whole thing.
I didn't realize that's
But
why it kind of fell apart. I just knew that like Walmart has kind of given up on it because to be fair,
to be
shopping
fair,
mentality the shopping mentality of when I go to Walmart is not the same as when I go to Target. And I'm not gonna say one is like worse than the other, but like
one is utilitarian, one is an adventure.
yeah. Like going to Target is like kind of like like going downtown. Like it's like, ooh, we're gonna go down to the city today.
I have
Yeah.
to dress up if I go to Target. I also
Yeah.
have to make sure I'm not wearing red. I've made that mistake 1,000 times.
Oh yeah, accidentally walk in a red polo and khakis, and it's the end of your day.
Because you could be like, I don't work here. They don't believe you, CJ.
Oh God.
Suddenly I'm doing an 8-hour shift because I was in the toys section wearing the wrong color shirt.
And God forbid you wanted to clean up a couple of the NECA sections that were just a fucking mess. Like,
Can you go in the back and check? I actually can't. I don't work here. Oh, yeah, then why are you doing the job? I actually was just looking for something. Yeah, bullshit. I'm going to get your manager. Please do. Maybe it will end this. No,
Oh,
Devin, go back
man.
there and get it. How did you know my name? Oh, and that's how you do it. It's like a Twilight Zone.
And
It's,
now you work at Target. That's
yeah.
how Target gets all of its employees, by the way, is just sorry fools that accidentally walk in a red shirt.
Oh my god, imagine in some dystopian story, that's exactly how it happens. And
Welcome to
you,
Costco. I love you.
gross. Gross, but probably true. But you know, Walmart, when they were doing it, and this is why, because they did like a Renette character. Do you know who Renette is in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Not in the least.
She is the Timestress. And actually, it kind of ties in very interesting to everything we talked about with Grim Guardians and River City Girls. She is a person who can control the flow of time.
The flow of panties.
She can control the flow of time, but Kevin and Pete thought that it would be hilarious if she talked like a Valley girl. But it's just like, but she's hyper intelligent and everything. It's just that her whole attitude is a Valley girl. And because they don't make her do stupid stuff, they don't exploit her. Very often, she is the Deus Machina in Turtle stories because of what her power set is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, it's possible to do like a cool kind of satirical look at a character because people think of Valley Girls as stupid, especially when like it was enough of a trope to be named like Valley Girl, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. No,
You know?
I mean, yeah, it's a much more. Let me put it this way: it's a much more fun exploration. You know, I haven't read any of the stuff, so I couldn't tell you if they succeed in what they do. But like, it sounds a lot more interesting to me than just like, hey, let's make her half naked and find out. You know, like when, in the future they don't believe in clothes. So,
Yeah, no, it's cool because like she looks all like scary and stuff, and then she takes her helmet off, and she's got like the dirty blonde hair, and they're like, "Oh, we were expecting her." She's like, "No, no, I'm like an apprentice." The first time they meet her, and then later on they meet her as an adult, and she's like, "It's been fun watching what you boys do." It's
nice.
cool. It's like it's a cool sort of thing. So Renette always depicted in blue outfits, but then when NECA did it, they put her in a red outfit. And then the blue outfit was a Walmart exclusive version of the figure, which you had to buy with Auto T. So you would go into a Walmart store, right? And like the old days at Toys R Us, you'd get a little card, bring that up to the cash register,
Hmm.
pay them $40. And then on your receipt, there would be a code to go online and enter it in and have them ship you the figure.
That's so weird. Like I understand the mentality of trying to be like, well, maybe we can get away with like saving on shipping in this regard. And Walmart infamously monitors their shelf space
Yeah.
for like, you know, it's a big thing for them to shift stuff around to make room. It's why there's a lot of stuff tied up in the way the ESRB works and kind of some shady dealings in regards to Walmart on MPA too, like the ways in which they really kind of try and work with Walmart in order to make sure that there will be space for certain things because like people the Walmart mentality is like their shelf space there is at a premium. I don't know how true that is anymore, but you know 20 years ago like that was a huge deal, right? And so I can imagine that, like, I can imagine how that conversation started, right? Of like, well, we're not going to ship you the stock, or we're not going to put that stock out because that stuff is just going to take up space on the shelf and never sell. So then they were, you know, coming to the conclusion of, well, what if we do this, right? The cards. This is a system that already we know works because, like you could do this. You can do this still now with video games, right? There are more video games available on a card than for digital download for you to just get it that way than there are physical ones in the stores. That's
Yes.
just then that's gonna and that's never gonna go back to what it was before. I'm waiting for that to start happening in the movie sections where people just get like digital release versions. They tried kind of starting that with like Voodoo when they teamed up with Voodoo and they did a lot of pack-in stuff, but they haven't really quite moved beyond that level yet. But they will eventually. Eventually, you'll just go in and just buy Voodoo cards from Walmart for the movies that you want. I think the only reason they haven't done it sooner was that because of stuff like COVID kind of blowing up the home watching market again, people were buying movies and video games again because they were suddenly going to be at home. So I think it kind of slowed down that process. But I bet you within like 5 years that the same setups that you see in the video game sections with the cardboard cards kind of overtaking the physical actual games being there, you're going to see that same thing start to happen in those movie sections.
Yeah. It reminds me of Service Plus, the name of the store, where everything was under glass. So
I
you'd have to like take it up and then would do it
Yeah.
that way. It was an interesting thing to do it because the floor space was minimum, but you could see everything. You
Mhm.
couldn't touch it, and then you would go and essentially you'd check out at the warehouse.
It's a shortcut to like
Yeah.
boutique mentality. Like it feels classy because you need to ask somebody to get it for you, right? Like think about going into like a jewelry store or like a high-end clothing store or something like that where like you don't touch the stuff. You get a salesperson to touch it for you, and if they deem you worthy to touch the stuff, right? It's like part of the whole process. It makes
Pretty
you feel
Woman, right? It's
special.
Pretty
Yeah,
Woman.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, it's boutique mentality that is again also not entirely like it's also kind of bullshit like because there's a lot of places that can do that to overvalue stuff. I One of my favorite like nerd stores to go visit, like it only ever window shop, does exactly this. It's this huge store in this mall down here in Utah, and like so it's out in the middle of fucking nowhere, right? And you go into this store and it's like walking into kind of like an Apple store, like everything's white and bright and clean and cement floors and cement tables that everything's on, and it's all stuff under glass and things like that. And then it's just a bunch of Funko Pops. Like you just walk around and it's just like, yeah, this fun. There are definitely some like $200 exclusive, like nice, like replica movie replica stuff. Like you can get Thor's hammer and shit like that. That is definitely there as well. But the majority of their shit that's there is the same stuff you can go get at Walmart. It's just the difference here is that it's all under glass, and you have to talk to somebody about the object before they sell it to you. So there's like this weird attitude of just like I don't really want to ask permission just to buy this Harley Quinn Funko Pop that I could just go 2 stores away and buy.
Let's put a pin in Funko Pops because we have to have a
Oh
discussion there, and
God,
I want to
yeah,
finish.
yes.
I want to finish the NFT of Walmart stuff. But yeah, so they were trying to turn it into you can have it shipped to you and have the physical thing, or we can keep it for you in our vaults, where as its price goes up, you can then sell it to somebody else. Like it was
Whoa.
like tangible product, but then it turned out that like that's not how it worked at all. Like they oversold, and once people were like, "Yes, no, I'd like my action figure," because that's how toys work. That's how collecting works.
Well, or I could hold on to it, eliminate you from the equation, and
Yeah,
still sell it later when it gets people
right.
where, like,
And
what
then
a
you don't get a
weird.
cut of it when I do. Like it was such a weird like misstep of the crypto bro situation that was basically 2022.
Wow.
Like it was so crazy. And like to this day, as somebody who likes Renette and that blue is the iconic version that I think of that character, I'd like one of those figures, but as far as I'm concerned, that just doesn't exist
Yeah, right.
because of how that
Well,
happened.
here's the secret: is it generally didn't.
Yeah, right. Come to find out. Yeah, so that just it's crazy. It's insane. It's insane.
I mean, it's a Ponzi scheme.
It
You're
is. It is.
selling
It's a Ponzi
you're
scheme.
selling you're selling the promise of a product that just doesn't exist. Like and that works only as long as people don't, call in the favor, right? And that's why the you never want to be at the bottom of the Ponzi scheme because you're going to be the one that doesn't get your toy, right?
Right.
Everybody else has got your money, so they've already made out like a bandit, but you were sitting there with a receipt for a thing that doesn't exist in the world. And that's exactly like how Ponzi schemes work and why they are illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just came that way. So it's really interesting to see, like Target really has embraced collectors as a subsect of everything that they do. In terms of the fact that with Hasbro, they have GI Joe, full lines of GI Joe that you can only get at Target. They've done 4 of those: Cobra Island, Python Patrol, Tiger Force. I guess they've only done the 3 because Cobra Island
Do
had
they
both male and female, had both Cobra and GI Joe in it.
Do they
But
also have the really cool like cell shading coloring going on, like the new Turtles toys have? It's one of my favorite things about the new line of the Turtles toys is I actually think they look gorgeous because they've got like those beautiful like shading lines, like cell shading lines.
Yeah, they look like cartoons.
Yeah.
No, those specifically, it's variants of characters that exist. I guess the third thing is that they've had just a full line of stuff that's only released at Target, and
Yeah.
then the three subsects of Cobra Island, Python Patrol, and Tiger Force.
Hmm.
Because like Barbecue, the guy from like these people, they go to bed and then they wake up and they're on fire. Like that character was only available at Target. Major Blood was only available at Target. Beachhead, like big name guys that people think of when they think of GI Joe were Target exclusive characters.
Wild.
And then they did that whole thing. So like that's something that Target is doing, and Walmart has tried that. Along the same lines as Target being your place for cartoon turtles, movie-based figures are supposed to only be at Walmart. That doesn't really work out. But then they redid the like 12-inch turtle figures. You could only get Michelangelo at Walmart, which makes zero sense to me. First of all, it probably should have been Leonardo because of the blue of it all.
Yeah, but kids like I think that there's an assumption that Michelangelo is the one that is for the kids. We've talked about this before.
Oh, we've talked about that. He's the
right.
second most popular turtle, no matter
of
what.
Those two stores, you're more likely to get a kid that's going to snag it off the shelf and demand it at a Walmart than you are at a Target. I don't agree with this. I'm not saying this is the actual way of it, but I can see that mentality, right? Of like, well, we're going to put this one in the Walmart because the Walmart's going to be the one with the shittier kids.
Yeah, I guess I get that. It was just weird that you could get all the other ones anywhere, but if you wanted a Michelangelo for that set, you had to go to Walmart.
Yeah,
well, they were just sold out.
I also want to clarify. I don't think anybody that goes to Walmart has shittier kids than the ones that go to Target. In fact, I've run into shitty kids everywhere I go. It's just that I think that when those kinds of decisions get made, these are the kinds of conversations they have
that are happening in the boardroom.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like stupid. It's like it's ridiculous that this is the way that we look at stuff. But also, it's worked more times than it hasn't. So that's the reason people still act this way. Still think
we're going to keep doing it until we see evidence to the contrary.
Right.
And then 3-4 years later, we'll change anyway, because it could have been a one-off. We don't know. But yeah, that's it. And then like another thing was Walmart tried to have like exclusive rights to Captain America figures, and then Target's like, no, we'll have whole exclusive lines of Marvel Legends stuff at our store. Like, it's really an interesting thing because they both understand that the collector, quote unquote, is a viable market for them in these kind of weirdly archaic situations.
Yes.
Like toys sections as a whole are very old fashioned.
I mean, you want to get honest about it. Brick and mortar stores in general are just very old fashioned. But yeah, so like they're finding themselves deeper and deeper down this hole of being obsolete, and they're just trying to do anything they can to not be.
And the collector is what they're aiming at, and the one who is succeeding. I mean, even based on this small subsection of data that we've examined in terms of what Target offers and what Walmart offers to collectors, is Target. Because nobody's going to Walmart. Here's the problem. If I go to Target looking for that Haul-a-thon stuff, there's a better than good chance that I'm going to find it, and they're going to get $700 from me. Not me, but the hypothetical collector, right? If I go to Walmart looking for stuff that is an exclusive to Walmart, there's a real good chance that it's not going to be on the shelf.
No, because it comes back to that whole thing where like they kind of really sold themselves as like being very protective of their shelf space, right? And they only really want to have stuff on their shelves that they know are going to sell, right? Like that's the difference.
Right. So then you go online for the Walmart stuff, and then bots have already bought it. And it's like, well, and the whole point of it, though, is to get the human into your store. Like, that's the reason that these things happen. It's why Haul-a-thon was supposed to be a multi-week thing.
And not just this, like, 1 week drop.
That person went to 4 Targets, but if every single Target slowly parsed out this stock, that person would keep coming to this same Target and possibly buy more than just that. Yeah. Oh, I got to get milk too, so I'll do that while I'm at Target picking up the Ninja Turtles for the week.
Yeah,
like you're trying to save yourselves, and then you're rejecting the inner tube that you've thrown to yourself. Yeah. You from the future have thrown you an inner tube, and you're like, I don't know if I can trust me from the future though.
I don't trust that guy.
It's really you from the past, right? Who has all the... I don't even know. I've lost the thread on this. But those are the things that have really been sort of with me this week, to be completely honest with you, is more time with Grim Guardians. And I'm so happy I'm done with it. I'm so happy that, like, I mean, it's 6 years of the Nintendo Switch. We just celebrated the 6-year anniversary this past Friday. So, like, once I have no pending games, I'm going to throw in Breath of the Wild because it feels like it's time.
Yay! I'll play it along with you. Let me know when you start.
I will. That'll be fun, huh? No, Here's the thing. I woke up this morning thinking, like, I should replay Breath of the Wild. And then I thought about what the opening of that game was, and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that.
You can get through that in, like, 20 minutes.
Okay. I will set a stopwatch when I do that.
Like literally, just when you walk out of that first area, like where you're asleep, just aim for the 4 things. Get the 4. I keep wanting to call them temples, but they're not. What are they called? Shrines. Just aim for the 4 shrines that are up there. Get your 4 powers, and then you're given the thing, and you just can go off and do whatever you want at that point.
And that's, like, I want to get to do whatever I want at that point.
I promise you that is super easy to do. It's just that when you first play that game, like literally for the first time, you're discovering so much about the mechanics of that game that it can take a good 3 or 4 hours if you want on the plateau. You can definitely take that time. But I mean, like, there are guys that don't even bother doing those shrines, that are winning this game. Like, there are ways around that.
I know it's just that thought, because I think about something like Link to the Past, and I know that the first 6 minutes of that game are going to be the escape, and I'm like, but 6 minutes to 30 minutes, like, I guess that's the difference, right? 24 minutes of me to get into the game, that's too much for me to give you, is where it comes from. But I'm excited for that once I get to that point, because it is. I'm going to be doing Ocarina of Time. It's spring break this week, so I should have some time to get through Ocarina of Time.
Nice.
I'm not going to have a lot of stuff going on.
I mean, you want to talk about
draggy
like Zelda openings, Ocarina of Time, and to that point, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. Oh my god!
Twilight Princess. I think Twilight Princess drags fucking every time.
I think 45 minutes. I think is the shortest that I think I've ever heard of somebody getting through that opening.
God. You know what? And the worst part about it is, then you still have to be the fucking wolf and find the bugs every fucking time you get to a new area.
And I think this is just, and maybe this is a 3D Zelda thing. Right? Maybe that's what we're talking about. Is because Wind Waker also has that whole thing where you're on what is it, Robin's Roost? Is that the name of it? Like, where you have to do all of the stuff there before you can get on the ship and explore in the sea. People remember Wind Waker for all of the great times they had going around and digging up treasure out of the ocean. But guess what? You don't get to that for like the first hour that you play that game. And this is this is true.
Stealth section in Wind Waker. I just want to punch somebody. That's why I've never replayed it. Sorry.
I was replaying Far Cry 4 this week just to have, because I was looking for a good run and gun game, and I love once that game gets going and you can just go around and just tackle outposts and towers and stuff. Love all of that. But I forgot that you got to get through 30, 40 minutes of other shit where you're kind of on rails for a while to just kind of get to being able to just walk around the world in that game. And I forgot that. So for a game that I popped in to just play for 20 minutes just to have some fun, I ended up stuck in it for 45 and didn't, right? And that sucks, because I do like that game. It's not like I'm saying that makes it a bad game. You spend 60 hours with the game, you forget that first hour of it was really kind of a slog, right? And going back really kind of, you're just like, man, I forgot how weak I was in the beginning of this game. And that's true of every game, because you play them for so long, you get into this power fantasy, you get really good at the mechanics, there's all of this stuff that happens. It is rare to have a game that makes you feel like you're doing amazingly well from the get-go, because in a lot of ways that kind of isn't the point. You're supposed to feel like you progress.
Yeah, it's part of the gameplay loop 90% of the time.
Right.
Is that you're supposed to feel better.
Yeah. But then you look at something like a Vampire Survivors, or I would even point to something like a Meat Boy or something like that, where once you kind of learn the mechanics, there's no getting into it, period. You're in it every time. And that's what makes games like that unique and fun to play. And then like and what kind of gives them that edge in some regard. Like I've been really struggling to find a good like pick up and play game. There's too many games out there where they really want you to dedicate time to this. And the problem is that you look up for good like quick games and people think that you mean like, oh, you want a game you can sit down and play for 3 hours? And it's like, no, 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 no. The exact opposite of that. I don't mean that I can get through the whole game quickly. I mean, I want a game that I can pick up and just be in quickly and then just get out of it when I want to, right?
And
Turtles was also like that last year, and I really appreciated that.
So good.
Yeah.
I want more of that. Like I enjoy games like that. And I
Mhm.
know that on some level, like people then question the value of what you purchased.
Oh
But
yeah, because it starts to feel like a flash game if you're not careful, right? Because it's like, well, if I could just get in and play this thing and then get out of it in 10 minutes, why am I going to spend $60 on this experience? And it's like, because you can do this a million times.
you realize that, yeah, you can give this half an hour of your time. I mean, I remember Demon's Souls the first time I did it, and I'm like, this is a beautiful game, and I'm excited about it, but I don't have 3 hours per gaming session.
Yep.
I don't have the time
Oh
to
my God.
dedicate.
Don't
Like,
touch don't touch what's his nuts that makes Hideo Miyazaki, no, not Miyazaki, what's his name that does
Metal Gear
the
guy?
Metal Gear games
I don't know
and
his
Death
name.
Stranding and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember, oh my, this is such a clear memory in my head because I spent all of the money I had going into senior year of college. I bought a PlayStation 3 and I got the Metal Gear
Metal
Solid
5.
4.
Oh, 4, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, the Metal Gear Solid 4 edition, and it was the first Metal Gear game that I owned. I had played Metal Gear Solid, all sorts of iterations of it on other people's systems, generally after they were kind of in the game a bit. So I knew what Metal Gear played like, but I had never really been aware of what it was like to sit down. You put Metal Gear Solid 4 into your machine, and it is when I say it's 45 minutes before you even play the game, it is like cutscene after cutscene. It's not even like, oh, I'm doing some silly shit like stealthing around at this low level for 45 minutes. You literally don't have to pick up the controller for 45 minutes at the start of that game. How stupid is that? Who has that kind of life that they could do that more than once?
Yeah, and it's unskippable every time, right? Like, I think that's the
Well,
other thing about it, or maybe they
I,
patched it in later, but
Well, even if it's probably unskippable because that dude's out of his fucking mind, and you are going to experience his art whether you like it or not. Is always kind of his
can we
attitude.
get
So,
his name before I
yeah,
feel bad about, like, just kind of leaving that? Is it Miyazaki?
no, I thought it was
Kojima!
Kojima. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Hideo Kojima.
Hideo Kojima. There are
Yeah.
people who listen to the show who will get mad at us if we don't say that.
No, no, no. I'm happy to call this motherfucker out. Like Hideo Kojima he is an author in one of the truest sense, and he is out of his goddamn mind in that regard. Like, and so like but his general attitude about that stuff is like, no, this is part of the experience. You don't get to skip this. Now that being said, I don't know. Maybe there is abilities to skip, but like. It gets to be that point where it's like, okay, you can skip this, but at this point, this is such a bizarre part of this entire experience. Why would you? Like, right? And that's inside all of us, there are two wolves, ones that want to just play the game and ones that want to experience the game, right? Which one do you feed, right?
Oh, wow. Sorry, I just...
He made
Yeah.
Snatcher for Sega? Is
Yeah.
that true?
I believe so.
Oh,
He did a
man.
bunch of crazy stuff. He was... I don't know. I just remember Metal Gear Solid 4. I bought that same. That was my first PS3. And I, like, hunted one down for that one that came with it when Soul Calibur 4 came out. Because that was pretty much what always got me to buy a new console before I had, like, my gaming and everything budgeted out the way that it is. Is if a new Soul Calibur came out, well, Devin Decker has to play that. So I bought the PS3 and I bought Soul Calibur, and no word of a lie, the like pack-in that came with my PS3 that had the Metal Gear Solid 4, I lost it. I found it years later, but someone's like, "You bought the system, why aren't you going to play the game?" And I'm like, honestly, I don't know where the game is. I'm going to be honest with you. So I have a sealed copy of that because by the time it happened, I had heard those horror stories of like 45 minute unskippable
minutes,
opening,
yeah,
and I'm just
yeah.
like, I don't want to
And
play
that's-
this game anyway.
Yeah, and
let
to be
alone
clear,
have it
that
waste my
happens-
time.
Yeah, and that happens all throughout that game. You just all of a sudden you find yourself crawling out from under a car and it goes into like a cutscene mode and you hold your breath because you're like, is this going to be just a 5 minute one where I get back to it, or is this going to be another hour of my life? Like you don't know. And so like you when you go to play that game planning wise, like how can you? You can't you basically have to say, I might just need 2 hours today to dick around in Metal Gear Solid 4, or I might need like the rest of my day.
Yeah, we need quick games again. And I will say, just because this is the last time that I think we're going to be talking about Grim Guardians, unless there's some huge controversy later on down the line, in which case we'll cover it because we're the Say Report, and would probably be the linchpin. Let's be honest, because no one else is talking about this clearly M for mature game that's masquerading in teen clothing. Gross. I hate myself. I'm sorry.
I mean, that worked on a lot of levels.
Yeah. Excuse me. Bro, that game is a game where you can jump in, play a level, and then you're done. Like
Right.
it is like that's the style of game, and people are mad about it because they're like, I thought it was going to be a Castlevania, and I'm like, not a Castlevania, a Metroidvania, as opposed to this new term that I have discovered, which is a classicvania, which is a game that plays like the classic Castlevania with stage progression and multiple ways through the stages. God,
Oh,
classicvania.
yeah.
Did you just made a Castlevania game, guys? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
does it need
Yeah.
its own terminology?
We need to compartmentalize everything. It's the only way we can talk to one another nowadays.
Like the fact that the game is you can get through a stage and it doesn't save until you finish the stage, so that's not great. But like these stages, unless you're looking for everything, shouldn't take you longer than 10 minutes. And it's great. It honestly is great.
I mean, you know what's really wild to me is one of the first big kind of Metroidvania games that was really kind of thrown in my face as like Metroidvania style, Shovel Knight.
And
And
that's not a Metroidvania at all.
but
That's more of a Mega Man-esque game.
yeah, but kind of in regards to what you were talking about, like the idea that there's like an overworld rather than this all connected thing. You do like kind of
Oh, so
you
you
don't
mean a
really
classic Vania. I'm sorry,
yeah
not a
that,
Metroidvania.
that's what I mean is like if that term had existed, then that probably would have been the better term to use for it, right?
Yeah.
Wild, whatever people
I mean,
did, like I said. And
or
by
a
the
video
way,
game. It's just a game.
yeah,
It
well,
doesn't.
right, but to your, but no, but like it's fair that people want to shorthand it for people because like when you're looking for a game and you want to know what things are like, somebody saying to you it's a Metroidvania gives you a pretty good place in your brain to start storing it. Now, you might need to get into the nitty-gritty details about specifics within that genre that you want to figure out, but you need to have a genre. Like you need to be able to talk about it in some way. So
True.
it's not weird to me that I think that the term exists. What's weird to me is the weight people apply to that term. And as you were saying last week, get pissy when it's misused. Because fuck me, ever since we had that conversation last week, every time I go on Steam, I now look at what game tags are on the games I play. You know how many I have found that are just ridiculously wrong? Like I was looking at Stardew because I have some friends that wanted to start up doing that. So I had Stardew up in front of me, and I think one of the tags I saw on it the other day were like were some type of RPG level fighting game, dungeon crawler. And I was like, technically there is a dungeon crawling element like in it, but I wouldn't call Stardew Valley a dungeon crawler. You can go to the dungeon area. You can go to the what it is the mines. You can work your way through, and it is randomly generated, and you do get stuff from it, and blah blah blah. That is definitely in the game, but to tag the entire game as a dungeon crawler is, I think, kind of disingenuous. And I think that's a fun conversation to have. Did I report it as a mistag? Did I go online and bitch about it to everybody? Do I now declare Stardew Valley is the worst game ever because they've mistagged it on Steam? No. But if anybody ever asked me, hey, is it actually a dungeon crawler? The first thing I'm going to say is, no, that's not correct.
That is a life sim. And
Yeah,
even
yeah.
some people would get mad at me for calling it a life sim.
Right.
Like,
It's very weird.
it's very strange. I guess, yeah, like, and on the base level of what a Metroidvania is to me, abilities that you will get later in the game will allow for different exploration and traversal in earlier parts of the game.
Right.
And so the fact that every boss in Grim Guardians gives you an ability, and then going back, you have to use those abilities to find the secrets and the
I
upgrades.
I I love this because I'm totally 100% agree with you, but I did also the second you said that thought, man, that means that all of the Arkham games, the Batman
Oh,
games are
they are.
all
No,
yeah,
Batman Arkham Asylum specifically is a Metroidvania. I would die on that hill
yeah,
without any question, because you get new abilities and it allows you to traverse the asylum differently.
yeah, yeah.
It is. And that's why, like, I think that on a real level is why Arkham City failed for me. And not that it failed. I mean, I played through it twice, and really what it was I didn't like that my percentage completion was included in RNG based bullshit.
And
With the
DLC.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that all true stuff from Siege in there. It so that bothered me, but what bothered me more was the fact that it didn't have that Metroidvania element that really sealed what Arkham Asylum was about.
Yeah, the going back and exploring past areas is definitely something you can do, but the in Arkham Asylum you need to do it to actually progress the game. In Arkham City, you need to do it just to collect like Riddler trophies. Like it's fun to go back and do, but it's not required in many ways, in
Yeah,
many sections, like it is in Asylum for sure. And that's by the nature of City just having the larger map and not needing it and all blah blah blah. But like yeah, all around. Totally true. But yeah, it's just really interesting to me that like when you lay that out as like your number one rule for what that is, there's so many games that come to mind that I never hear talked about in that regard, but they totally are,
right.
right? The Asylum games, I've never heard anybody talk about them as Metroidvania-esque, but like now that we are having this conversation, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess the issue is that because that's like step one, step two is interconnected map. So
Mhm.
even though you think of all those games where like you get this ability and it changes things earlier on, the lack of an interconnected map sort of stops the discussion. And I will say this: my third playthrough, where I collected all of the underwear, in that I played from the first level through to the last level, and I didn't have to do that. I could have fast traveled to the start of every stage,
Mhm.
but all the stages do connect. It's not like gameplay stops and you're transported to a hub and then you have to go to the next area in Grim Guardians. You can just go through the game and keep going through the game.
Then it is a connected map. It
Yeah,
just
like
happens to be like loading
it's
screens, I
just
guess.
like there happens to be stage delineations and fast travel to the start of those stages.
Yeah, but you know what? There's been some Castlevania games that have incorporated that. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people who compare it to Rondo of Blood, it is probably the most because it has that like world map thing, Rondo of Blood.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to talk about the game anymore. What I do want to do is pull that pin on the Funko Pops,
Yeah, let's talk about the landfill full of Funko
which
Pops.
I have to imagine is probably near that mall in Utah, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
right. Yeah.
like we gotta find
No,
the
you know what it
landfill.
is? They're buried right next to all of those
All the
Atari
ET.
ET copies out there in the.
No, they found those ET cartridges. They unearthed them, and that bunker's still sitting there. So let's just shove a bunch of Grogu's in there. I just
Man,
it's so crazy to me. Like, first of all, that means the end of Funko, right?
nope.
Okay,
I
it
wish
does
that
for
that
me,
yeah
but
yeah no yeah but no because what was hidden in that whole story. So for anybody that doesn't know, Funko just announced that about 30 to 36 million dollars worth of Funko Pops are basically just going to be going to landfills this year because they aren't selling. But what they're saying in that is that their method of overproduce, sell as much as you can, and then never like I do see clearance stuff that I think clearances are technically more held by the retailer, right?
yeah,
That's to clear out their
I
own
got a
stock rooms.
dollar Peacemaker at Best Buy, so
Right.
like,
So it's not that there's not like sales or clearances on the stock that's already out there. The problem is that if the stores has that bunch of shit on clearance, they're not going to Funko to order more shit. So it's Funko themselves that have it. So it kills me because like your first thought is why not just like make them a buck and put them on shelves? And it's because well Funko is not the one running the stores. They don't have the shelves, right? But like there has to be something else they could be doing with this besides just trashing them.
they
That's my
could
first
send
thing.
them to Africa with all the people who think that the Eagles won this year's Super Bowl. The
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
is there's an inherent collector element to
So they
Funko
have to,
Pops.
yeah, they have to fridge them. They have to destroy them if they want to continue this idea that they're rare or hard to come by. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I don't think it's going to be the end for them, because in all of this story, none of it was about them losing money in this regard. It was just, yep, we made an extra $30 million worth of Funko that we probably didn't need to this year. Maybe we will dial back a little bit. Probably not. But this was more like, this seems like something that has honestly been happening that people just finally kind of picked up on. I cannot believe that this would be the first time that they've had to throw millions of dollars. Maybe it's the first time they've had to throw $30 million worth of stock
Yeah.
away. But I bet if you look through past years, they've probably been dumping millions of dollars worth of stock for years now. It's just, we just have not really talked about it. And the worst part is there probably has been some schmuck somewhere that has written about this before, that has been like, I've been telling you for years the waste they've been creating. Like, this has probably been out there. This is just the first time that we've gotten a lot of people to talk about it.
You know what it is to me? Why can't they just like melt it down? Like,
Yeah.
why is it trash? Because
Yeah,
it's
I don't know.
plastic. And then the other thing about it is just how bad plastic is in general. But
Yeah.
then also one step further is the cost of plastic keeps going up, right? So like, are they artificially inflating the price of plastic because of this stuff, and then they're throwing it away? Like, the value of plastic is a thing that I think maybe as a society we need to look into.
Well, and so let's be as clear as we can in that regard. These are specifically vinyl plastics, right?
Yeah.
Like they're a particular type of plastic that are not used. Like the whole concept of recycling is really kind of so surface level for people. Like it's really, this is something I really picked up on when I moved to Utah, and like they don't recycle glass out here, and there's a lot of neighborhoods where they don't recycle period out here. You can pay like companies to actually recycle for you, like, is a thing that exists in Utah. It's wild. Like, I've just never experienced it before. We don't live in an area like that. We have a recycling bin. We can't do glass though. Glass definitely just goes in the trash, unless you want to take it out of state, and then you can drive it over state lines and go to recycling facilities. But this whole idea of like how recycling works and what is recyclable, and all of this is actually just like so up in the air for so many people. You know, the big thing that I learned this year was the pizza box thing. Greta Thunberg, I'm going to throw that out there. Learned that from her with all of the bullshit that happened with Tate, right? Like when I first, pre that, I was always under the impression you can't recycle pizza boxes. They're covered in food grease. They're just not usable. They're trash. No, you totally can. There's a ton of facilities that are willing to do that now. There are definitely places where you can't, so you need to kind of look into it. But the second that you tell somebody they have to start doing research into what to do with their trash, this just goes out the window, right? And that's a problem. That's not good. And so we come to this idea of like, why are they not just like melting this down and like recycling all of this? The only other thing I think they could probably do with it is just probably make more Funko Pops.
But
And like,
that's what I'm talking about.
but they would need to have the facilities to do that
To
themselves.
do it.
They don't
gotcha.
have recycling facilities that are then going to just pump back into their own shit. They should. And so when you hear about companies that going quote unquote zero waste, or like plastic neutral is another term that you see, that is because what they've done is they've either have created their own, or they've partnered with a facility of some kind that can do exactly that. And that's the question, is why isn't Funko looking into creating this kind of facility? If this is the kind of waste that they are creating, why are they not making an effort to create some facility somewhere where they can do exactly that? And that is a fair question.
Why aren't they searching for some
Or
facility
investing in
that
a
can
facility
do
that does
that?
exist. Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I have to imagine it like the fabricators, right? Because I don't like Funko probably not creating this stuff on premises, or if they are, right? But they have to get the material from somewhere, right?
Yes, yeah,
like
yeah.
wherever they're getting their supply of vinyl to turn into, Peacemaker, to then sell him for $1 at Best Buy time later. Why isn't that supply company like, do you want these things to melt down? Like, what is done to a Funko Pop that makes it trash? Like,
Well,
would that plastic, because
the
of the
soul,
paint?
the souls of all of the celebrities that they keep putting into it. You know
Right,
how many
right.
John Cena pieces of soul they had to put out into those peacemakers, and if they try and melt that down, and then it all becomes
I don't
one.
know.
That's
I
like
look
a
into
Chucky
those.
situation.
And I don't see anything. You
You
keep
don't see-
talking about it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's an old joke, but it's a classic. It's a good one. Still checks out. Yeah, I have to imagine that like the paint apps or something like that would kind of ruin the ability to do. It's just
No, it's
insane to me.
laziness. It's
It's
laziness.
laziness, right?
Like we can sit in here and try and make excuses for the big corporation, or we can just be honest about the entire thing. And it's because they have not deemed it money worthy to look into that specific element. Maybe like the goodwill of trying to win back some goodwill after this story. Maybe they'll deem it worthy to finally look into this kind of thing. But essentially, like they've determined that at some point it was just not worth their time and effort and cash to do this particular thing. And it sucks because like this is the kind of shit that leads to landfills full of shit that won't ever go anywhere. Just waste in general, like and also, the ways in which you aren't wrong about the ways this kind of artificially inflates the price and the value of existing stock that's out there in people's hands. Like it sucks because like it's all about pumping up those numbers, right? And that's just the way that things
It's
are right
about
now. And
pumping
that's
up
not an
those
excuse,
numbers at the expense of our planet,
but uh-huh.
which is far more valuable than freaking the Rita Repulsa figure I think I bought for $2 at Hot Topic.
Did we learn
Hot
nothing
Topic
from
exclusive.
the GI Joes, from the Captain Planets, from the Turtles? Did we not learn anything about recycling in the 90s? Apparently not.
What did we learn nothing from E.T. the Extraterrestrials?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason. I mean, let's talk about the cyclicality of fucking time in that thing, right? 40 fucking years later, we're burying unsold stock yet again.
Yet again.
I mean, I don't think we got a better call off than that, right? Is there anything else you want to add to this episode before we send it off for informed consent by our listening audience?
I got through all my gyms in Pokemon, so I'm going on to do the, what is it? The Elite Four? It's not the Elite Four in this one though. The Champion Ballot or whatever it is.
It's like the Elite Four, but more of an Elite Four than it's ever been before, because it's actually like tournament play.
Yeah, a couple of those later gyms were they were structured in a way that I wasn't expecting, and it kind of threw me for a loop. I don't like, this will turn into a whole discussion if we really start talking about it, so I don't really want to. But the later gyms in Sword kind of sneak up on you and don't be and they kind of just came and went. Like it was not as big of an event as I kind of wanted them to be. However, I will say this, coolest thing ever, my very last move, every other Pokemon had fainted. I had this one guy out, and it was my main guy. I had picked the grass monkey from the beginning of the game, grass monkey, and he has a kind of a signature move of his, that at least I consider it to be a signature move of his, where he pulls out a giant hammer and like Donkey Kong style smashes like the other people. It's awesome. I had him all like just super leveled, had this move, last thing, won. Like that felt good. Like, as much as I can complain about how I was kind of unprepared and unexpectedly found myself in the last gym of the game, I also was able to do something like that and have a moment that just felt awesome.
And it's a Rillaboom now, right?
Yes.
Your Grookey has gone from Thwacky to Rillaboom.
Yep. Yeah. He is a full on. And so he's got his cool like 80s haircut, and he's got his taiko drum in front of him. And then he pulled out a giant hammer and smashed the dragon Pokemon that I was fighting. It was awesome.
I mean, that's interesting that you say that, because I was waiting for you to get to Pierce, because that whole storyline around that gym is super cool to me.
So that's the Team Yell stuff?
Yeah, that's like Marnie's fighting for her hometown, and because we're
like
slum.
I know. The story is really good. Here's the thing. I had finished the gym just before it, and I was just going along, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to get into this town, and I'll do some shopping, I'll go to the Poke Center, heal everybody up, save, and then I'll come back, and I will do this gym tomorrow. 10 minutes later, I had finished the gym, and I was like, oh, never mind, I don't need to come back to this one tomorrow. It was all good stuff, fun world building stuff and fun story. That the way that game sets you up for kind of the game loop of how you go through gyms, and then suddenly just completely breaks it with that one. Yeah. Just completely breaks the loop that they had set up. And that's cool. I just wasn't expecting it, and the end result was me getting through a gym in under 10 minutes that I didn't even expect to play until the next day. It kind of really just threw me off, and still playing the game, still loving what I was experiencing, but those last couple of gyms really threw me off.
And was it Gordy or Melody who was your sixth gym leader?
Melody.
All right, so the ice gym?
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
She is very good. You're doing Shield, right?
Yes.
Because the Gordy, that one felt like, this is a waste of my fucking time.
No,
When I did
that
that
one was
on
really
Sword.
cool.
Like,
I didn't.
Melody was a cool
Melody
story.
had a little bit of an attitude I didn't love, but I think that
Oh, I love if I
she comes
I like
around.
her.
No, she
Yeah.
comes around in the end, but like when you first go up against her, she is just like snotty. It's
Yeah.
just like, but no, the ice gym, like going through like the
Yeah.
clouds, trying to find your way through. No, yeah, that was really
In
cool.
Sword, you fight Gordy, who is her son, which is like really cool. So like by playing Shield first and then into Sword, I got like a cool story about how she like passed the gym on to her rock trainer's son.
Yeah,
Like it was like this really cool thing. But then like Gordy, I'm just like, well, I don't really care because Melody had the more interesting story about the fact that like she's so hard and into being a gym leader that she couldn't pass it on to her son in this particular series of events.
right.
Which is cool. And then the Pierce thing. But then like Rayhan, the dragon thing, the fact that it's more about like weather totally threw me for a loop.
So yeah, well, and it does two things, right? They introduce, not introduce, but to the gym battles, they really lean into the weather effects and the doubles.
Yeah.
That's the other big thing that happens. And again, just was so kind of not prepared for that. I didn't have things quite set up but I was able to get through it.
Yeah.
It's just why I ended up with everybody being fainted and having this one moment left. It threw me off so much that I was basically ready to throw in the towel and say I'm gonna have to redo this gym now that I know what it is. But then I didn't have to because I was able to get through it. And like I said, that felt really good. So
like it's cool gimmicks, but I can understand where it's different from the rest of the game.
Yeah, it just is so different, and there's no warning. It just comes at you, and you're just like, oh shit, I'm here and I'm done. Oh, all right.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I'm curious. Like, I'm excited to see what else happens for you with that one. Is what I'm gonna say. But I'm glad to hear you get through that. Cool. So there's more Pokemon, promise of stuff. I will probably have Metroid Prime to talk about next week because I can't imagine
Cool.
Kirby is going to take me the whole thing. This is also your reminder that coming this Friday is our anger management episode of the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
So listen there. Also, I don't want to talk about it, but Scream fucking 6 comes out this Friday.
Yeah,
I feel like we just had a Scream movie a year ago.
Yeah. We're gonna have to talk about Scream again. I think we did touch on it a little bit at some point where we were talking about some of the stuff going on story wise, and Scream 5 was the one that really hit for you, right?
I mean, Scream 4 I thought was really good.
4? Was it 4? Yeah.
And then going into 5 was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I am still at that phase where like it's like Avatar for me. Very happy that it's out in the world and that the people that love this thing can experience it. But I am just so like disconnected from it that I will say this: love Jenny Ortega just getting more and more work. Like, so excited about that.
So I don't disagree with that. It was one of those situations where, like, honestly, if I followed my heart after watching Scream 3, I would have never watched another Scream movie again.
Yeah.
Like, that is that bad.
No, I think, the franchise all around has really done a great job of rising from some really deep ashes. Yeah.
So that's all stuff that you can look forward to. It's also Mario Day on Friday, so I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking. I mean, the new Mario Kart 8 DLC. Siege and I are definitely going to be assholes about that. We're going to sit down and race each other. And
I was thinking about it, by the way. We mentioned that we thought that would come out in April, and it turns out it's coming out in March, and it has to be to coincide with the movie, right?
Well, it has to. Well, that's why I thought April. I thought it was going to coincide with that. Its release coincides with Mario Day. It's a day before Mario Day, March 10th.
Right.
So it's more for that.
Yeah, but this also will allow people to be playing this and really get into the Mario spirit for the movie next month, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's dope. I mean, Mario movie tickets go on sale on the 9th as well. Because it was so interesting when I saw, the DLC comes out. I'm like, okay, that's the same day the tickets go on sale. And I'm like, yeah, you think that there might be a reason behind that?
Right, exactly.
You think that, So, who knows? But then, shouldn't they both come out on March 10th for actual Mario Day? March 9th. But I guess it's because it'll be March 10th in, Australia.
Right. I was going to say, what you're doing is you're setting it up so that everybody can do what they want on March 10th, as opposed to some people getting it and some people having to wait a day.
Yeah. So, everybody will have it on March 10th, but I think it's based on Japanese release date. Because it'll release on March 10th in Japan, which will be March 9th for us.
There you go.
So it all works out. All right, so if you have anything that you want to say to the show, or specifically Sejan, since he long ago got rid of his Twitter account, we are available on Twitter at The Say Report.
Yeah, and if you want to hit Dev up in any way and talk to him about some more Metroidvanias that maybe don't quite fit the bill, you can find him at Devin D. Decker.
Yes, thank you. I was afraid you were going to say if you want to talk to him about Galgun, because I would have told you I'd block anybody who talked to me about it. I'm officially done with it.
I was not going to wish that evil on you, I promise.
I got the platinum for me. I'm getting the platinum with Dale probably today, if not tomorrow, and then that's getting deleted and never thought of again. It's been an interesting adventure.
Eternal Sunshine that shit right out of your brain.
Once goes by. I don't know how that song goes. I just knew we heard it all the time at Blockbuster. Will, stop us and bring us home. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Stay Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Stay Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channels that is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.